Have you ever found yourself wondering, why do I feel so drained after talking to that person? Or maybe you've given someone chance after chance, hoping they'd finally treat you with the kindness and honesty you deserve, only to be let down again. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. As we get older, we're supposed to feel more peace, more clarity. But the truth is, not everyone grows with you. Some people, whether they realize it or not, continue to play emotional games. And while we may have more wisdom today than we did decades ago, these situations still hurt. They still confuse us. And they can still leave us feeling small, misunderstood, and even a little broken. But here's the truth I want you to hold on to. You were not built to break. Life may have tested you, people may have disappointed you, but you are still here, still standing. And you have more power than you think when it comes to protecting your peace, setting boundaries, and walking away from anything or anyone that no longer serves your well-being. In this video, we're going to talk honestly and gently about how to deal with people who manipulate, who deceive, who twist your words or make you feel like you're the problem when really, it's them. We'll explore how to recognize the signs, how to hold your ground, and how to come out stronger on the other side. Let's begin right where the pain starts, with recognizing the game. Manipulators don't come into your life wearing name tags that say, "I'm here to take advantage of you." Oh no, they show up with charm. They laugh at your jokes. They seem to care. They might even tell you all the right things. "You're amazing. I've got your back. You can trust me." But over time, something just doesn't feel right. Their actions don't match their words. They disappear when you need them most. Or they give just enough to keep you hanging, but not enough to make you feel safe or respected. It starts small. They forget something important to you. They interrupt you, dismiss you. You tell them how you feel, and they act like you're being dramatic or too sensitive. They make you feel like the problem. And if you've ever sat in silence after a conversation thinking, "Did I say something wrong? Was it my fault?" That's often a sign you've been pulled into their game. And here's the trick they use: inconsistency. One day, they're sweet as honey, praising you, making you feel special. The next day, they're cold or distant, and you're left wondering what you did to deserve it. That emotional roller coaster isn't accidental. It's a way to keep you off balance, chasing their approval, trying harder, hoping the nice version of them comes back. It's exhausting. And it's not love. It's not kindness. It's control. Sometimes they use guilt. You finally speak up, set a boundary, say you're not okay with something, and suddenly, you're the bad guy. "I was just joking." "You're always so negative." Or they act hurt and say things like, "I thought you were different." They flip the script so you're the one apologizing for simply protecting yourself. And then there's gaslighting, one of the cruelest tactics of all. That's when they lie to your face and then make you doubt what you saw, what you heard, even what you felt. You bring up something they did and they say, "That never happened." Or, "You're remembering it wrong." The goal is to make you second-guess your own mind. And once they've got you questioning yourself, they can tell you anything, and you might believe it. But I want you to remember this. If someone's behavior is making you feel confused, insecure, or like you're walking on eggshells, it's not your imagination. It's the game. And here's the part that's hard to hear, but so important. Sometimes, the person playing games with you isn't a stranger. Sometimes it's your own child, a sibling, a friend you've had for decades, someone you love deeply. And that makes recognizing the truth even more painful. But truth is the first step to healing. You have the right to name it. You have the right to say, "This doesn't feel good," even if the other person doesn't agree. You don't need their permission to honor your feelings. And once you start seeing it clearly, once you stop making excuses for them or telling yourself to just let it go, that's when you can begin to protect your peace. Because the truth is, we teach people how to treat us by what we allow, And if we keep accepting crumbs, they'll never offer the loaf. Now let's talk about something just as powerful and just as tricky, your emotions. Manipulators don't just want your trust, they want your reactions. If they can control how you feel, they can control what you do. They want to see you upset, flustered, angry. Not because they care, but because it gives them power. Think about it. Has someone ever pushed you until you finally snapped, and then they looked at you and said, "See? This is why I can't talk to you?" That's the trap. They poke the wound, and when you cry out, they blame you for bleeding. But when you learn to pause, when you feel the heat rise in your chest, and you take a breath instead of reacting, something magical happens. You take back control. You stay grounded. You respond with intention, not emotion. And that doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. Not at all. Your feelings matter, but they belong to you, not them. Take time to feel them, but don't hand them over to someone who's only going to use them as ammunition. There's a strength in staying calm, in not raising your voice, in saying, "I hear you, but I won't be spoken to that way." That quiet strength will shake them more than any outburst ever could. They expect you to yell, to cry, to beg. Don't give them that satisfaction. Let them sit in silence. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them face their own behavior without your energy to shield them from it. Because the more you protect your energy, the less access they have to your mind, your peace, your joy. And that, my friend, is how you begin to rise. You see, once you start protecting your peace, something shifts inside of you. It's subtle at first, a quiet strength. You begin to realize that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every word deserves a response. The power isn't in being loud or in proving your point. The real power is in knowing when to walk away. And that brings us to something many of us, especially those of us who grew up in a different generation, sometimes struggle with: setting boundaries. Now, you might be thinking, "I've never been the kind of person to put up walls." That's okay. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors. And you get to decide who walks through. The truth is, we were raised to be polite, to keep the peace, to not stir the pot. But there comes a time when protecting your peace is more important than protecting someone else's comfort. And that time is now. Setting boundaries is simply saying, "This is what I will and won't accept." And you don't have to say it with anger. You don't have to yell. You can speak it calmly, kindly, and firmly. "I'm not available for that kind of conversation. I'm not going to be talked to like that. I'm taking time for myself today." And here's something important. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't have to justify your need for space, respect, or rest. Your boundaries are yours. And the people who care about you, truly care, will respect them. But here's the part that trips most people up. It's not setting the boundary. It's holding it. Because the moment you start saying no, when you used to always say yes, some people will push back. They'll test you. They'll call you selfish or cold or difficult. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. And that's when you need to remember, it is not your job to make everyone comfortable. It's your job to take care of yourself, to protect your heart, your time, and your energy, especially now. I want you to think about this. Have you ever left a conversation feeling drained? Have you ever hung up the phone or walked out of a room and just felt small? Like your light got a little dimmer? That's your spirit telling you something. That's a sign that a boundary was crossed or never existed to begin with. And that's when it's time to make a change. Not with anger, not with revenge, just with clarity and grace. And speaking of grace, let's talk about something even more powerful than setting boundaries: choosing not to stoop to someone else's level. Now, I know how tempting it is. When someone lies about you, mistreats you, or tries to make you look bad, everything in you might want to fight back, to expose them, to give them a taste of their own medicine. But here's the truth. When you lower yourself to their level, you lose something precious, your peace. You see, manipulators want a reaction. They want you to get angry, to lash out, to make a scene, because then they can point the finger at you. See? Look how emotional they are. I told you they were difficult. It's a trap. And the moment you take the bait, they win. But when you choose calmness, when you stay composed, they lose their grip. Because they don't know what to do with someone they can't provoke. That's where your real strength lies. Not in matching their games, but in rising above them. In saying to yourself, I won't let this drag me down. In walking away with dignity, instead of staying to win a fight that was never worth it. Think about it. Has arguing with someone who loves control ever changed their mind? Has yelling ever made a manipulator stop manipulating? Probably not. Because those people don't respond to logic or love, they respond to power. And when you withhold your reaction, that's the greatest power of all. You become untouchable. It doesn't mean you don't feel hurt. It doesn't mean what they did was okay. It just means you've made a decision. I will not let this change who I am. And that brings me to something you might not have considered before. One of the greatest tools you have, especially now, is silence. Now, I'm not talking about giving someone the cold shoulder. I'm talking about silence that comes from wisdom, from strength, from knowing that some conversations just aren't worth having. Because silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It says, I don't need to argue. I don't need to prove anything. I've said what I needed to say, and now I'm choosing peace. And here's the beautiful thing about silence. It forces people to sit with their own behavior. When you stop reacting, they have nothing to feed off of. No fuel for the fire, no distraction from their own actions. There's a kind of silence that simply removes you from the chaos. You stop responding to the texts. You let the phone ring. You don't attend every argument you're invited to. And there's another kind, a quiet detachment that says, I'm still here, but I'm not playing. It's the kind of silence that unsettles people who thrive on control because they don't know if they've gotten to you, and that drives them crazy. Silence gives you space to think clearly, to feel your feelings in private without letting someone else twist them. It helps you heal without having to perform your pain for someone else's satisfaction. Because the truth is, some people only want access to you so they can keep you small. And your silence? That's the sound of you rising. When you master the art of silence, you begin to experience something truly life-giving. Peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need to be defended, that doesn't need to be explained, that simply exists because you created it. And that, my friend, is something no manipulator can ever take away. You know, the older we get, the more we come to appreciate peace, not just quiet moments, but true inner peace. The kind that isn't shaken by someone else's drama or mood swings. The kind that lets you sleep at night with a calm heart and a clear mind. But that peace only becomes possible when you choose it, again and again, even when it's hard. And one of the most powerful ways to keep that peace is to move forward and level up. That means letting go of people who play games, not with bitterness, but with freedom. You don't owe them a final conversation or one more chance. What you owe is to yourself. A life that's not stuck on repeat, chasing after approval, explanations, or apologies that may never come. See, manipulators want you stuck. They want you so busy defending yourself that you forget to live. They want you explaining your boundaries, proving your worth, doubting your decisions. And every time you get caught in that trap, you lose a little more of yourself. But what if, instead of explaining yourself, you simply moved on? What if, instead of hoping they'd see what they lost, you focused on what you're gaining? Because that's where real power lives, in forward motion. In choosing to stop circling the same mountain and take a new path instead. That doesn't mean you forget what happened. It means you don't carry it with you anymore. You take the lesson. You leave the weight. And here's something beautiful to remember. Growth is the best revenge. Not spiteful growth. Not, I'll show them energy. No. Quiet, confident growth. The kind where you build a life so full, so nourishing, so peaceful, that their name doesn't even come up anymore. That's when you've truly moved on. Not when you've erased the pain, but when the pain no longer leads the way. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for closure. But here's the thing. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you decide for yourself. Closure is saying, this chapter is done, even if I never get the ending I deserved. Closure is choosing your future over your frustration. And when you make that choice, when you stop looking back, you create space for something better. You start attracting peace, not chaos. Kindness, not conditions. You begin to meet people who respect your time, your truth, your heart. But it starts with you, with raising your standards, with asking yourself, what kind of life do I really want from here forward? Not just avoiding toxicity, but reaching for something richer, something that fills your spirit and honors your worth. Because if you don't decide what you deserve, someone else will. And they'll almost always aim lower than you should accept. This is your time now. To live lighter. To expect more. To stop settling for crumbs when you were always meant for the whole table. And if there's any part of you still wondering, but what if they change? I want to say this gently, maybe they will. But it's not your job to wait. Your healing doesn't need to depend on their growth. And your happiness doesn't need to be put on hold while they figure themselves out. When you level up, you're not leaving people behind out of spite. You're just not shrinking to fit their patterns anymore. You're not staying in places that require you to constantly explain your worth. And that kind of growth, it isn't loud. It's steady. It shows up in the small choices, the boundaries you hold, the conversations you walk away from, the mornings you wake up with a lighter heart because you finally chose you. You see, success isn't just about money or recognition. Real success is peace. It's joy. It's laughter that isn't forced and company that doesn't leave you second-guessing yourself. And maybe for you, success is a quiet cup of tea in the morning, knowing no one is going to call with drama. Maybe it's being able to say no without guilt. Maybe it's sitting across from a friend who listens, really listens, and makes you feel safe. Whatever it looks like for you, that success starts when you stop letting people who play games rent space in your mind and heart. I know it's not always easy. Walking away can feel lonely at first. But I promise that loneliness is not a punishment. It's a space, an open space for something better to arrive. And in that space, you rediscover yourself. You remember your strength. You remember your joy. You remember who you were before you were pulled into someone else's games. And maybe you even find a version of yourself you didn't know was still in there. Wiser, freer, more alive. So if today's the day you decide to stop playing along, let it be a quiet celebration. Not because you've won, but because you're finally free. Let it be the moment you say, I've spent enough of my life trying to earn peace. Now I'm going to live it. You deserve that. At any age. Especially now. So go ahead, delete the message. Don't answer the call. Let go of the story. You don't need their validation. You don't need their apology. What you need, and what you have, is you. And that, my friend, is more than enough. Here's to choosing peace, to walking tall, and to never again playing games you were never meant to be part of in the first place. Now, if this message speaks to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment, share your story. We're building a space here where honesty and healing are welcome. And if you found value in this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe so we can keep growing together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing yourself. And most of all, Thank you for showing us all that it's never too late to protect your peace and live your truth. Here's to living your best life, free, empowered, and unshakably you.